Welcome to Free Thought Matters, a production of the Freedom from Religion Foundation. I'm Annie Laurie Gaylor.
And I'm Dan Barker. Annie Laurie and I are co-presidents of FFRF. FFRF has been working for 40 years as a national nonprofit to educate the public about non-theism and to defend the constitutional principle of the separation between state and church.
And today we're very pleased to have with us Rafida Bonya Ahmed. Bonya, as she is known, was the first recipient in 2016 of FFRF's Forward Award. And this is an award recognizing individuals who are moving society forward. And Bonya is an American citizen born in Bangladesh. Her husband was Avijit Roy, a well-known atheist author who moderated the Bengali blog called Mukto-Mona. And many of you will know that on February 26, 2015, in Dhaka, Bangladesh, they were set upon by machete-wielding Islamist militants, and Avijit died in that attack. Bonya was critically wounded, and as she's recovering, she's become an even stronger proponent of secularism. So Bonya, it's very lovely to have you here in Madison.
Thank you for inviting me.
And I thought before we talked about what happened there in Dhaka, could we learn a little bit more about your background? You were born to, I think, a moderate Islamic family in Bangladesh, and then you became an atheist. How did that happen?
Oh, that was very early. I was like 12 or 13 years old. And my parents were very moderate. If you asked them, they would say, yeah, we are Muslims. But there was no prayers, nothing like that. The only person I have seen praying in my house was our grandma who used to live with us, my mom's mom. And at the age of 12, actually, my dad, for some reason, taught me how to read like very early, and it was like a game between us. He would just give me, I remember I had a big table with a world map. He would just, in the morning, he would say, oh, find Togo or something like that, a country or something. And I will, when I was 4 or 5 years old, and when he comes back from work, I would find it and point it to him. So I used to read a lot, but anyway, by the age of 12, I kept thinking, isn't it unfair that if I were born in a Muslim family and then I die and go to some kind of heaven or hell and standing there and saying, and looking at the God, and this is not the God, I was told to worship. So what happens? I was very puzzled. So those, other religious people, like I had a Hindu teacher, I had a Christian teacher. So what if we are right? Will all of them go to hell? Why would they? Because the way I think my religion is right, they also believe that their religion is right. So my dad, we used to talk about all these things all the time. We used to joke about different kinds of little traditions and religious rituals and stuff during our dinner time. So my dad looks at me and smiles, and he goes, why don't you go read the scriptures and come back to me? So I started checking out books. There was a library, and I started checking out the kids' version of Ramayana, Gita, Bible. I think we used to call it Torah, the Jewish and then, of course, Quran in Bengali, in Bangla, the language that we speak. And a year later, I went back to my dad. I was like, Dad, they all sound like fairy tales. I can't do this. And he just laughs at me. He goes, okay, that's fine.
So you had really good parents who respected you. In an Islamic culture, respected a daughter and allowed her to think for herself. I mean, that was pretty special.
It was not uncommon at all. I went to a private girls' school, and my friends, my best friend living in D.C., they're pretty much non-religious. It was very common. My mom was a lawyer in the 1970s. People would say, if a neighbor saw her in the court, she's not a woman, she's a man. So, it was pretty common,
So you've said that you're about as old as your country. Bangladesh.
Yes.
And you've been through a lot with it, and it's changed a lot. And of course, when you and your husband were there and this crime happened, before we talk about that, you met him through his blog,
Yes.
right? Mukto-Mona.
Right.
And
Mukto-Mona.
and he is he was an author and very prominent non-believer.
And Mukto-Mona means free thought?
Free thinker.
Free thinker, okay.
Yes.
Wow.
Mukto means open,
Yeah.
free, and Mona means heart. It can be thinking.
Yeah.
You know, so he put those two together and actually started that blog in 2000. Actually, it was not a blog at that time. There was no concept of blog. It was a Yahoo forum. And he was a PhD student in Singapore. He left Bangladesh after his undergraduate as a mechanical engineer. And then he was in Singapore doing his PhD in biomedical engineering. And he thought, you know, there wasn't any kind of forum for non-believers to be in, to feel part of a community, you know,
In Bangladesh.
In Bangladesh, in Bangla-speaking world, there are actually a part of India where they speak the same language as well. So the name of the country comes from the language. Bangla is the language. Desh means country.
In Bengali.
Yeah, Bengali. You know, the British distorted everything, like starting from Mumbai to everything. So Bangla became Bengali for them. They couldn't say it.
And you both wrote books in Bengali.
Yes, that was a conscious decision actually we made. So we met, yes, just to answer Annie Laurie's question. I was in Atlanta. I think I was a manager in a telecommunications firm in fiber optics engineering. I finished my study as a computer scientist, and then I started working in Ottawa, and then I moved to Atlanta. And I was recently divorced with a 3.5-year-old, and a friend of mine said, "Hey, you know, there is a forum just started. Maybe you would like to write there?" And I wrote something, and there were like a lot of people criticizing me in there. And I was at work, and I just looked at all those criticisms, and I thought, "Oh my gosh!" I just logged out of it. I don't have time for this. I have to run, pick up my daughter, from school as a single mother. And next day I go in there, and someone called Avijit Roy, which is a Hindu name, who responded with like a lot of references and a lot of like, he rebuttals and all that. So I called my friend. I was like, "Who's this Avijit Roy?" He goes, "Oh, he's the founder." I'm like, "How come you didn't tell me?" And how old is he? He is very impressive. And he goes, 29. I'm like, I'm 31. Okay. Is he in a relationship? And he was like, "No, he isn't." I'm like, "Oh, I really need to send an email and thank him." So that's where it started.
The rest is history. Huh?
The rest is history.
And so you got married, and he's written books in Bengali, in atheism, science books, correct? He was pretty well known, wasn't he?
Yes.
And so
he has written 8 books.
8 books.
Yes.
So you had gone back to, I guess, the big book fair that take a month or so?
Yes.
In February
it's a
in Bangladesh.
month-long book fair to celebrate the International Mother Language Day. In 1952, in 1947, when the British left, the Indian subcontinent was divided into India and Pakistan. We were the East Pakistan, and West Pakistan was like on the other side of India. It was weird. Like these two countries have no, they don't have any similarity in culture or language, nothing. But they were divided based on, they were together based on religion. And we had like India, the big India in between us. So we were geographically separated, and West Pakistanis were in power. But we were majority in a population. So they said, in 1952, they said, Urdu, minority of the people speak in West Pakistan. Even, most of the West Pakistanis don't speak Urdu. And they said that has to be the state language. and people came out. Actually, it was a mile away from where the attack happened on us, where the kids, the students, came out, protested, and the army opened fire.
Oh, this is in the 50s.
1952, 21st of February. So that's why UN has declared 21st of February as International Mother Language Day. And we have a month-long book fair, like the whole month of February, when most of the important books are published. All the publishers come together, all the writers come, sign their books and all that. So Avijit had 2 books published in 2015. So he really wanted to go for that. We went on, we stopped by to see our daughter. She was a freshman at Johns Hopkins. She just left home. So we decided to surprise her on Valentine's Day. We met in Baltimore, and then my mom met us from Minneapolis, and then we flew on the 14th to Bangladesh, 14th of February, 2015.
And the attack happened on February 26th?
26th of February,
And
right. We were there by, I think, the 16th. We landed in 16th of February.
And why were there militants out there angry at Avijit? I mean, had he been getting death threats, and did he feel there was a security risk, or was this out of the blue?
Sometimes I get really angry, and my psychiatrist has a hard time making me understand maybe that's not right. I still to this day keep thinking maybe he did not tell me about all the threats, because he would sometimes hide these kind of things to me. But no, there was actually one threat that Avijit reported to FBI a year ago, and that was a kind of like loon, like a stupid guy who bugs women on internet, and a guy who said, okay, if Avijit comes to Bangladesh, then he will be killed. So we thought, okay, this is just a stupid, unstable guy who is threatening. And we were very careful. Like my mom wouldn't we stayed with our uncle, but my mom wouldn't let us go anywhere without a chauffeur. We never stayed out, after 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening. We didn't go anywhere by ourselves.
And there were hundreds of people when the attack happened.
That was, I keep blaming myself that why did I let Avijit go, or I went with him every day. We went almost like 6 or 7 days every day, and kind of like stupid of me now thinking back, but what can I do?
Nobody
that we went at the
expects to be
same
attacked on the
time.
streets,
We used to go around like 5 o'clock, because that's when everybody comes from work, and and we would stay until 8. And normally, a lot of our fans and readers would actually walk us, because our chauffeur would actually wait a few hundred yards away outside of the book fair. Because you cannot drive in directly to the book fair. They block it, and there was like heavy police presence, CCTVs, everything. So my mistake is that I didn't think it could happen in front of thousands and thousands of people, police, and cameras at like 8 o'clock in the evening.
So, do you know how many Islamic militants were part of the attack? Were there several men?
They say now in last few months, most probably they have caught some people who might be the real, killers, and we are not sure, because the government has been so. What should I say, so secretive about this. And they have come out many times and said, oh, we got the killer. And it turned out to be, not right. And also...
because maybe they just want to say,
we're
doing our job.
They do, because they actually, as you know, they stayed completely quiet after the attack.
Yeah, you told us last night that police didn't even interview you.
No, nobody. You know, I'm an American citizen as well as I'm a Bangladeshi citizen. You know, and nobody from Bangladeshi government, the embassy, or the police, or the detective branch have ever contacted me. It's only FBI who talks to me. And they stayed completely quiet after the attack on us because Avijit was pretty well-known author and a blogger. Mukto-Mona was pretty well-known. We were pretty known. So it was a very big protest after the attack. He had I was in the ICU, you know, after the attack for 4 days before I was brought into the Mayo Clinic. But there was a big funeral, public funeral in Dhaka University. Hundreds and hundreds of people attended. But the government decided to stay completely quiet. The Prime Minister called my father-in-law, who is a very well-known humanist activist. He was a physics professor. Actually, Prime Minister's husband was his student. So she called my father-in-law and said sorry and said she wanted to do everything she could, but she kept it secret. She didn't want the press to know. And it got leaked a few months later.
So, Bona, for somebody who doesn't know, you were just walking out of the book fair and you don't remember what happened. But machete-wielding
I know quite
men,
a bit now.
they
I have even
attacked
seen
you
us
both.
walking. You know, from the they have released the CCTV footages that we are walking out of. But then it stops right before the attack.
So you let us read your book. You're working on a wonderful book, and you let us read some of that. And
The
in
first chapter is
and
very
in it,
gripping.
You explained that none of the people wanted to help, but there was a young photojournalist who jumped up, took some pictures, and was the only person who would help. It's probably the reason you're alive today. And you don't have a memory of what happened, but you could fill it in because of what this young man told you. And now he's in trouble. Is that right?
Oh, yes. Yes. You can actually see the pictures. If you just do a search on my name, those are the pictures come up. I am standing there all bloodied and with this, you know, the thumb cut off with like this open wound bleeding with 6 to 7 inches machete stabs on my head. And my husband, Avijit, is laying bleeding like in a pool of blood on the street, and there are like hundreds of people just surrounding us, staring at us, and there was a policeman in there too. And I don't remember what he said. The young photojournalist said that he found me unconscious on a motorbike on my back and he thought I was dead. And then a few seconds later, when he started clicking, like taking pictures, he realized that I haven't died. So he shook me, and I talked to him later. I finally got the courage to interview him for my book last year.
Well, because it fills in pieces that you didn't know.
Oh, yes, yes. And he said, I got up with like really, like I'm all, like it was all blood all over me. And I got up with red eyes. He says, I have seen vampires, you know, when I was little. You just reminded me of that. And I said, what happened? And he then showed me Avijit, and I went and tried to get him up, and I actually started asking other people. You know, my car was waiting like few hundred yards away, and our chauffeur says he heard noise, but he didn't move from the car because it could be some kind of unrest or something. So, and then he says he took a few pictures. His colleague took some pictures and ran, and then he got into this, you know, ethical paradox, like issue that should, you know, my job says just taking pictures is my duty, but as a human being, I cannot go away, you know, they need help. So he ran, stopped a three-wheeler, you know, a scooter kind of thing, got us in there. And I remember that's my first memory that I have, that something was going in speed and my hair is flying and I am asking someone, are you taking us, are you going to kill us? And there's something heavy on my lap. So now I know that's, you know, that's Avijit's head. So he took us to the hospital, and he has been, poor thing, you know, he, I think he is in like early 20s. He has lost his jobs like 3 or 4 times so far. Every time he gets a job and they find out that he was the person who helped those like atheists, like well-known atheists like Avijit or me, he gets fired. His work actually took the pictures and fired him the next day.
Wow. Well, he saved your life.
I know.
You were critically wounded.
I'm talking about random chances.
And your husband died shortly after getting to the hospital, correct? And you didn't know it at first.
Yes.
But you were it took months and months of
Yes.
recovery. I know you still get migraines and have many other issues. But
Yes, my back is really bad. My SI joint shifts. I get constant migraines. I was under PTSD watch, but my psychiatrist just let me know that she has re-diagnosed and I do not have PTSD.
I wanted to ask you, you're still speaking out and you're still public. I think a lot of people after something like this would just duck their heads and go into hiding and be afraid, and yet you seem to be wanting to take advantage of the life that was handed to you.
That is pretty much my whole TED Talk.
Oh, yeah.
that's right. Now you have a TED Talk coming up.
Yes.
On April
April
20th.
April 20th.
And they're flying you into Exeter, England?
England,
And this is,
yes.
I didn't know this was a big venue for TED
Yeah,
Talks.
it is one of the biggest. I think it is number 4 from the number of people who watches TED Talks.
And so this will be streaming live too. So
Yes,
even though
yes.
it's a big auditorium,
Yes.
the rest of us can
It's
see
going to
it.
be great because she gave us a sneak preview of it, and it's really going to be fun to watch.
And that's exactly what Dan asked me. That's exactly what I'm going to talk about. I remember Avijit and I connected over ideas, and I think my worldview, science-based, worldview, philosophy saved me, and I'm here because of that. I kept thinking, I still remember the bed in the Mayo Clinic. I was brought over on the 4th day with an emergency doctor flown in from Hong Kong. U.S. government was involved, my work was involved, my family was involved. And then I kept thinking, we all think, why me all the time? But if you really think about it, we live in a universe which is so violent, stars crashing, galaxies merging, asteroids crashing, wars, poverty, famine. Like there are I just saw that there are more than 64 million refugees who have been displaced. Inequality is going up to a rate that we have never seen before. So why do we get so depressed and we think it's the end of the world and thinking, why me? Why bad things happen to me? If you look at the probability, isn't it more like, why not me? Like I was lucky that nothing hit my little garden, that the Eden or whatever that I created, and I thought I would be all safe in, right? So, and I kept thinking about that, and at that time ISIS was really big, and the Yazidi, I kept thinking, if a Yazidi girl being raped like 7, 8, 9 times, then, and still have been sold again and again, can live, then why not me?
Yeah.
I'm in a much better situation, much privileged situation. So, and the universe doesn't care if I live depressed and hide in a dark closet, or I try to live a more meaningful life. What is more meaningful for me and for my surroundings? Maybe give voice to the people who doesn't have a voice.
Wow.
Well, and I wanted to talk about that briefly. I met you really through your work to help other endangered Bangladesh non-believers, bloggers. Some of the people who were associated with your husband also were killed after this attack,
Yes.
correct? And the situation's very, it's stabilized in the last year or so, but there have been quite a few deaths of so-called blasphemers
Yes.
or apostates in Bangladesh, and you've been working with a lot of them.
Yes, they actually, a lot of them, if not hundreds, had to actually flee the country. The Islamists vowed to kill one a month. And that's what was happening right after, and the government stayed completely quiet. They said it's politically suicidal for them to say anything in favor of the atheists.
So, I mean, you've done a great deal of work, but Bangladesh is actually supposed to be a secular nation.
It does have a secular, constitution, but as we have seen in many other places for last few decades, it has gone it's a majority Muslim country, and it has been infiltrated outside, inside with very religious fundamentalist views, and and that's what I want to write in my book, that this is complicated. This is not just religion. This is not just Western imperial greed. This is a complicated phenomena that we need to understand more. This is what is happening in our world at our time, and we really need to understand it better, rather than having these simple narratives and just saying, a one-liner that this is what is causing this.
But the best way is with Mukto-Mona, with free thinking that's able to see the big picture and not, through a little lens of religion, and that's what you are doing. Right,
exactly. And I really want to thank you guys for being such a, big partner in, I couldn't do it alone, FFRF came forward, helped quite a few bloggers.
So
it made such a big difference, because we still have a lot of displaced bloggers and writers
and
who cannot go back to the country.
The situation in Pakistan and Egypt and other places
and
as well.
Police is not helping. Government will not help. Actually, there's a semi-blasphemy law, and the government they have arrested, instead of punishing these people, the government had arrested the atheist bloggers for insulting religion or insulting religious feeling, hurting religious feelings.
So it's a very unrestful time still in Bangladesh, but you're out of there, and thankfully. But we're almost out of time. But could you just say briefly about your plans? You're going to be a fellow, I think. You have a fellowship.
Yes. I'm actually at UT Austin right now. I was working on my research work for the book, but I will be a fellow at London School of Economics. Their Human Rights Center does a lot of work on the same topic. So that's why.
London School of Economics?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes. From this fall.
Wow.
So that's where I am hoping to finish my book.
Well, we're looking forward to the book.
We can't wait to read it. And thank you so much for all your hard work to help others and for joining us today.
Thank you very much.